Refrigeration regulators. Now every split system, standard split system, has a refrigerant regulator. What am I talking about? Well, there's either liquid or gas refrigerant that makes the air conditioning system operates, and it circulates between the outdoor condenser or heat pump and the indoor evaporator coil. And when that refrigeration indoors at the evaporator coil changes from a liquid state to a gas, it goes through a regulator. Now there's two different types. There's a fixed regulator called a orifice, sometimes it's also called a flow rater or a piston, or there's a second type which is even better and required by some systems called a thermostatic expansion valve, abbreviated sometimes as TXV or TEV. You might be using a fixed orifice or a thermostatic expansion valve, but you never use both. It's one or the other, so let's talk about the differences between the two and when you might use them. Now, typically a system will come with an orifice, and we've got one setting right here for you, or piston installed in it, and you might be using that. Now, lower efficiency systems can often operate with that exclusively, whereas the higher efficiency systems often require the thermostatic expansion valve. But if you can see here, this tiny little piece of brass has a precise hole drilled in the middle, and these come in a few different sizes depending upon the tonnage and efficiency of the air conditioning system you're installing. But it's a pretty low-tech but crucial component to an air conditioning system. Take a look at the manufacturer's installation instructions when you receive your equipment or in advance of purchasing it to figure out if you'll be using the orifice, which is already pre-installed in the evaporator coil, or if you'll have to change it. Now, typically, with higher efficiency systems especially, you'll have a larger tonnage indoor evaporator coil installed in the ductwork inside or in the air handler. And if that's the case, if it's a larger tonnage compared to the tonnage of the unit outside, you're going to have to change the orifice that comes included in the system. Otherwise, you might be just using the one that's already in there. So take a look at that paperwork to figure out if you have to change or not. If you're not changing it, then you don't have to sweat that part of the situation. Just go ahead and install it per normal according to instructions. But if you need to change it, let me show you how simple that is to do. So here's the one I have on the table that I'm going to replace the one that's in here with. Now, where do I get this one? If you're purchasing a new condensing unit or heat pump, it will often come included in a little baggie such as this, taped to the side of that outdoor equipment. If you have one of those, use the one that comes in that baggie included with the equipment. And let me show you how easy it is to do this. So here we go. This is an evaporator coil. When it's brand new, it's going to come pre-charged with nitrogen. It's an inert gas, so the first thing you want to do is release that, either at this fitting here or over here. Now, I've done that in advance already. Simply take this off, and there's a little Schrader valve in there. Push it in with a screwdriver or something like that. You'll hear a hissing noise. Let that out. Alternatively, you can loosen this with a wrench. You'll hear a hissing noise. Let that occur for a couple of minutes until that stops, and then you can safely take this nut off. So the first step is take this nut off, like so. This is just a little piece of plastic. We discard that. And inside here, you can see, is that orifice. Now, to make it easy to pull that out, the new orifice kit will have this little wire included, tiny little wire, which you simply put through the center of that orifice and then whoosh, pull it out. That was easy, right? Okay. That will be disposed of or discarded. Make sure you don't confuse it between the old one and the new one. And then we want to put in the new one. So here we go. I've got the new one. And you notice by the shape of it that it can go two different directions. I want to put the pointy end in, same way as the other one went, as so. Push it in place. It will come with a little O-ring like you see here. Remove the O-ring that's already in place, and I've already done that, and put in the new O-ring. And then the coil will have one of these little pipes here included in it, and this flare fitting, and tighten that in place with some wrenches so it's snugged up. And then per the normal installation, you would solder in the liquid line and the suction line set. Those are the pipes that connects the indoor equipment to the outdoor equipment, and proceed with your installation as normal. That takes care of changing an orifice. Now, let's talk about putting in a thermostatic expansion valve. And again, this could be an upgrade to a system. So the first thing we do if we're installing a thermostatic expansion valve is take out the orifice, because we're not going to need that. We don't need both. We just need one or the other. So again, use a little wire or whatever you can to pull that orifice out, get rid of it, and dispose of it, because we're not going to need that again. Now, let's take a look at this here. This is a crazy looking slinky of sorts, but it's a really clever device that has a regulating orifice in it. So instead of just a fixed little size, this will sense the temperature of the refrigerant and change, according to the weather changes and the heat load on the building, the amount of refrigerant that flows through here. And it increases the efficiency, meaning it will still cool the home fabulously, but use less electricity to do so. And that's the big upshot to using one of these. So here's how it goes. Real simple to do, actually. It just, because it has these flare fittings, it screws in place. So I'm just tightening this nut on here first. Once I've got that in place, then I take this little piece, which was included with the coil, and this flare nut, put it on the other end. This is where I'll solder in the liquid line, that small line set. It takes care of that part. Then I've got this tiny little piece over here, and it has a flare fitting that screws right onto this part of the coil. Now, most new coils will have a little spot to screw that on simply, like so. Of course, these will be snugged up with wrenches and, just as needed. Once we've got that thermostatic expansion valve installed, as usual, this pipe still needs to be hooked up as it normally does in any installation, which would be to cut off the end here and solder in the suction line. And then this thing here is a sensing bulb, and this is what senses the temperature of the refrigerant. So the way it's going to do that is by simply strapping it on to this pipe and then holding it in place with whatever brackets are provided, like so. Bracket will be put in place. It comes with some nuts and bolts to secure that. Once it's in place, it also comes with some insulation. The insulation will be wrapped around here, and that way it will sense the temperature of just the pipe and not the ambient air around it. And really, it's simple as that. It's not going to be too big of a deal. Once it's all installed, it also comes with this little thing here, which kind of looks like one of those things you would put your cold refreshment in to keep it cool, but it's actually not. But it has similar purpose in that instead of keep the refreshment insulated, it's going to keep the thermostatic expansion valve insulated. So this just slips around the outside when you're done to keep that insulated temperature-wise. We have this little easy connection port here. Let's take a look over at this particular brand, some of the other things that came in the box. See these little pipes here? See these pipes? Put those over there. You might use these or you might not. You might end up discarding them, but if the coil that you have does not have one of these little connection points to screw this fitting onto, you would solder one of these in place and then screw to it. So that's handy. Let me show you another brand of thermostatic expansion valve. It's going to do the same thing, but this particular brand, if you look closely at it, does not have flare fittings, so you would solder it in place instead. So it's going to be a little bit more work, but it's still going to accomplish the same thing. Thermostatic expansion valves come in types that work with different refrigerants. So we have R22, that's one refrigerant type. We have R410A. Make sure you get the one that works with the refrigerant type that you're using for your equipment, and make sure that it covers the tonnage range of the outdoor equipment, that outdoor condenser or heat pump. Those are some key points you'll want to note about refrigerant regulators.